I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room. What is going on, everybody? Welcome into The Locker Room. Listen, I know it's been some time. It's been a minute. And I appreciate everybody. Appreciate all the well wishes. But we are back. We're good. There's no more breaks. It's just me. Okay? So, welcome back. Before we get started, it's super simple. I mean, just go to TLR Podcast 615 and get all things Locker Room. All the access you need, all in one location. TLR Podcast 615. This episode is brought to you by FNX Fitness. Go to fnxfit.com. That is fnxfit.com for all of your gym needs. Listen, clothing to supplements to recoveries, they have it all. Use your promo code TLRHOST for 15% off your order. So, it's been a minute since I've been back, and I haven't had a chance to talk about my Los Angeles Lakers. I haven't had a chance to talk about the additions made by the greatest player of all time, LeBron James, and what he has done to this roster, the chemical experiment that is about to happen in Los Angeles. So let's start there. LeBron James decided that Kyle Kuzma wasn't going to cut it, decided Caldwell Pope wasn't going to cut it, Montrez, while he was nice, wasn't going to cut it, Alex Caruso was going to have to go get his head shaved at someplace else because LeBron James was going to retool this entire roster. And here's the deal. When you are LeBron James and Michael Jordans of the world, you are the ones that are setting up this roster. Let's be honest. Now, I know like GMs play into it and trades and money and all that, but at the end of the day, you are going to be the number one factor as to who gets on this team. So this is LeBron James's team. Make no doubt about that. And that being said, here are my thoughts on the team. The biggest question mark, of course, is Russell Westbrook. We'll talk about him in a second. But I love what they did with the rest of the roster. Rob Pelinka and LeBron James and that Lakers organization does a great job at scrambling after the mayhem at the beginning, right? Last year, they didn't go out and when they didn't get Kawhi Leonard, when they didn't get Bradley Beal, when they didn't get Damian Lillard or whoever else they were trying to go after, they didn't panic, they settled down, and they filled in the team around LeBron and Anthony Davis. And that team ended up winning the championship. Now, here's the deal. You can go into all the different factors. Well, there was 4 months off. There was the bubble. There was this. There was that. At the end of the day, they still held the hardware. And Latavius Caldwell Pope and all these other pieces that they kept together, and Alex Caruso and Taylor Horton Tucker and all these guys, Dwight Howard, all these guys factored in and were massive parts as to why the Los Angeles Lakers won that championship. So they do a great job at scrambling. And or after they get their big free agent, in this case Russell Westbrook, now they have very little capital, very little time to try and sign as much impact guys as possible. So I've got to commend the Lakers right off the bat because the Lakers have done a great job at filling out the back half of this roster. Carmelo Anthony. It is poetic that Carmelo Anthony gets to come home to Los Angeles. I don't know if it's his home, but I say home because LeBron James and him have literally known each other since they were in 9th grade. But he gets to come play with his best friend in Laker Town, in the biggest stadium in the United States when it comes to basketball. The Lakers, between the Lakers and the Celtics, the two most historic and greatest franchises of all time. And he gets to try and push one more time for a championship. So I'm happy for Melo. Because listen, I like Melo. Hoodie Melo is definitely my favorite kind of Melo. Also, Mellow Yellow is pretty good. It's a little dad humor there for you. But at the end of the day, I love the fact that Carmelo Anthony got picked up by the Lakers. I was worried that he was going to try and go back to the Knicks, and while that would have been great because what he did for the Knicks was incredible, made them literally relevant, this is awesome. LeBron gets to play with his best friend. Carmelo gets a chance at a ring. Another big piece that I think is very interesting that not a lot of people are talking about, Kendrick Nunn. Listen, Kendrick Nunn was a 11-3, 11-4 guy off of Miami's bench. That's a huge scoring punch off of the bench. While I loved Alex Caruso and his defense was fantastic, while I hated Kyle Kuzma from the very beginning and wanted to get rid of him, while Talen Horton-Tucker was still coming into his own last year, you can get a guy like this that in a deep Miami team was very good coming off the bench, had several 20-point games in the playoffs, but is a scoring threat. Kendrick Nunn is a scoring threat. That is what Kyle Kuzma was supposed to be, right? Kyle Kuzma was supposed to be this great scoring threat. He's 6'4", he can play defense. Kyle Kuzma's basketball IQ is one of the worst I've ever seen in the NBA, and that's not really genuinely not a joke. Kyle Kuzma has horrible basketball intelligence. His court vision's bad. He plays okay defense. He's way too inconsistent for my liking. I've always wanted him off the Lakers. You're not bringing in a guy that is going to give you 11 points and 3 or 4 assists a game coming off of your bench. So I love the addition of Kendrick Nunn. Ellington. Listen, Ellington is a 39%, 40% three-point shooter. So while they're losing defense in the Alex Carusos and they're losing the defensive presence of Latavius Caldwell-Pope, they're getting more consistency when it comes to scoring. The Lakers are sacrificing defense for offense. Let's be honest here. So Alex Caruso's gone. Latavius Caldwell-Pope's gone. Kyle Kuzma's gone. They sacrificed all those guys, and while Pope had an incredible run when they won the championship, Latavius Caldwell-Pope just could never get back to normal form. Couldn't be consistent. Alex Caruso, great defender, not very consistent offensively. Kyle Kuzma, we know what a crap show he was. So they're replacing those guys with consistency, and that's what I think is so smart about how LeBron filled out this roster. Ellington, a fantastic, consistent piece. Trevor Ariza, a fantastic, consistent piece. Trevor Ariza is a 3-and-D guy. He's lanky. He's going to give you some good minutes. He can shoot the three, and that's all you need. You need consistency. If you look at LeBron James' teams down in Miami, when they were at their best is when they had the Shane Battiers, the Mike Millers, the Ray Allens of the world. The consistency from those guys. The consistency from those 3-and-D guys, those filler guys. Think about how important Shane Battier was in their run. The first time they won the championship, right? Shane Battier didn't play a whole lot. Then he comes in, and he was older at this point, but he comes in, plays good defense, and just hits consistent threes. Even if he's hitting 1 out of every 3 attempts, 1 out of every 2 attempts, that is consistency from what the Lakers had. The Lakers did not have any sort of consistency. Bringing Dwight Howard back. They finally got... Now, while I don't think Dwight Howard is the end-all, be-all, like everybody else is saying, Dwight, this is the biggest signing that the Lakers got, Dwight Howard, blah, blah, blah. Listen, Dwight Howard's a very big piece to this whole entire offense and defense and rebounding, but he's not the end-all, be-all, right? Even though the Lakers have size with Pau Gasol and Dwight Howard's going to do exactly what he did when they won the championship, which is show up, create chaos, get some rebounds, get some putbacks. I know they said he's been working on his three-point shot, but that's all Dwight Howard's ever going to be, and that's all they need him to be. They just need the bully. They needed that dog that was going to be down low, banging into some bodies, pissing people off, and could take some of the pressure off of LeBron and AD having to rebound every ball. Because while I like Marc Gasol is not going to beat you up on the boards. He's not going to get 14 boards a night. What Marc Gasol does really well is he spaces the floor. He's a very good passer. He's strategic around the basket. So Marc Gasol is going to be a nice little filler piece in and out as well. And then, of course, when Anthony Davis goes down to the 5, there's all sorts of possibilities that can happen with this roster. And that's why I like the back half of this Lakers roster is there's a lot of versatility. When it comes to the Brooklyn Nets, there's not a lot of versatility. You have to have one of the superstars out there at all times taking every other shot, right? Joe Harris is not a shot creator. They gave away Karis LeVert. If I'm the Nets, I don't know why you go get James Harden and don't rock with what you have, because Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Jarrett Allen, that roster with KD and Kyrie, I think is much better than what they have, but that's neither here nor there. So I like the versatility that was added to the back half of this roster. Marc Gasol, Talen Horton-Tucker, who really started coming into his own. And I think Lakers fans were screaming, what I was screaming last year was that you got to give Talen Horton-Tucker more minutes or get rid of him, right? It seemed like he was a wasted piece last year, trying to find a way for him to work, and then he'd come in and do well, and they would just ship him out. I didn't like Frank Vogel's rotations last year, but he was dealing in a shortened season with an injured LeBron and Anthony Davis all year, so I get that, but I think the addition of keeping Talen Horton-Tucker here is a massive piece that's very underrated. And they just filled out this roster well. Now to the big question mark, and that's Russell Westbrook. And the big question is what is Russell Westbrook going to be for these Lakers? We know Russell Westbrook, the triple-double king. We know Russell Westbrook, the hardest, I would arguably say the hardest working player in the NBA, the hardest every single night going 1,000 miles an hour, the hardest playing player in the NBA. Russell Westbrook, the guy with an attitude, with a chip on his shoulder, with a lot of dog in him, who doesn't like to take no crap from nobody. We know the Russell Westbrook that has played with Kevin Durant and James Harden. He has been played with Paul George. He's been shipped all around, played with Bradley Beal last year. We know Russell Westbrook can get buckets. We know Russell Westbrook can rebound. We know Russell Westbrook can get triple doubles. But what will Russell Westbrook, be when he gets to the Los Angeles Lakers? Or I guess the better question is, what does LeBron and Anthony Davis need him to be? See, here's why Brooklyn worked last year when they actually played together. Because James Harden took a step back and said, listen, I don't need to be the James Harden of Houston. I don't need to be the James Harden that averages 34 a game. I need to be point guard James Harden. Someone that can initiate the offense, someone that can get Kyrie and KD in one-on-one positions because I can create so much attention myself. Basically a point guard that can shoot threes out of the building. He's basically taking Steph Curry's role from that 2015 Golden State team, right? Steph Curry was just supposed to create space with his shooting, get a lot of one-on-one matchups for everybody else around the team, and so you had a mismatch. You know, Sean Livingston was going against Matthew Dellavedovas of the world or whoever. That's what Steph Curry was doing. Getting buckets, but also kind of staying out of the fray, getting Klay Thompson, getting Draymond Green, getting all these guys just easier one-on-one matchups. So we know LeBron James going to be 37 this year. We know LeBron James, he can't continue to take the ball up. He can't continue to initiate the offense every single night. No matter how much LeBron wants to think that he can do it, he's got to stop. See, what we saw 2 years ago when LeBron James won the championship in the bubble, right? LeBron James, during that whole kind of finals run, didn't really step in and initiate himself until the conference finals game. Like, let's be honest. LeBron James is at the point in his career where he needs to take over for games that he's needed and not every single night. We don't need LeBron James bringing the ball up the court, initiating the whole offense, having to move around, having to cut. Let LeBron James go stay out on the wing. But here's what the Lakers have to trust, and here's what LeBron has to trust, and why AD has to trust this, and why this is one of the biggest chemistry experiments ever to be known in basketball. Can Russell Westbrook be a good primary decision maker for these Los Angeles Lakers? Can Russell Westbrook take the burden of LeBron James having to bring the ball up the court and initiate everything off of LeBron's back and initiate the offense? Can he be that guy? Now, I know a lot of people are saying that LeBron has to have the ball. There's no way LeBron can play off the ball more, whatever, blah, 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 blah. I don't necessarily think that's true. Now, for me, I would start LeBron James at point guard, put Russell at the 2 for the first quarter. Then when LeBron goes out, Russ just switches right over to point guard duties, and then Russ can just be Russ. Russ can dump it off to Anthony Davis. He can drive, he creates space. Russ can do Russ things when LeBron's sitting. That's just my personal opinion. I would have LeBron James initiate the offense. I would keep Russ at the 2. And if Russ does stay at the 2, Russ has got to be a driver of the basketball, a mid-range shooter of the basketball, not a three-point specialist. And would you like to know why Russell Westbrook shouldn't be a three-point specialist? Oh, I don't know. Probably because he sucks at three-pointers. Like, worst in the NBA. All this usage rating, all these attempts, just a bad, not good. I don't know how many other ways to say he sucks at three-pointers besides that Russell Westbrook can't shoot threes consistently whatsoever. Like when Russell hits a three, he's pounding his chest and flipping the frick out. It's like, dude, that's a natural, normal shot, and you're being left open. The Lakers a couple of years ago when he was in Houston, when they played defense against him, they just let Russ shoot the whole time. So, what do the Lakers need him to be? What does LeBron want him to be? What does AD want him to be? Do they want him to be a driver of the basketball from the 2-guard position and just create chaos and get rebounds and drive and create space, give open looks to Anthony Davis, get nice open kicks because he will create so much attention from the drive? Or do they want him to be the point guard position and let LeBron do that and do that? LeBron's a more consistent shooter, I would say. And I'd like to see LeBron be able to get those off-the-ball reps. But I don't know. This is a weird chemistry experiment that we have never seen. Russell Westbrook has never worked with any major superstar. And I know that a lot of it has to do with Russell Westbrook's game. But maybe it has to do with the coach not also figuring out a good system. The team not also figuring out a good system to let Russell Westbrook be who he is, which is let him bring the ball up the court at ferocious speed and go crazy. Because you need that. But also let Russell Westbrook calm down and be cerebral and be able to initiate a game while LeBron's on the wing or while LeBron's sitting on the bench. So it's a weird mixture. It's a lot of question marks that I'm sure will be answered in a very short amount of time. I'm sure we're going to see very early on into this chemistry experiment whether this is going to be successful or whether LeBron just made the biggest GM mistake of his entire career. I'm going to shy on the positive side. I think Russell Westbrook is going to work. If Russell Westbrook, let's put it this way. If Russell Westbrook is a Los Angeles Laker, it is because he, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis have all agreed that they have a very good plan. So I don't think they're going into this blind or like they're going into this without knowing the outcome of the chemistry experiment. So for me, I'm going to shy on the side of positivity. The rest of the roster is fantastic. I love how the Lakers filled it out. Can Russell Westbrook be that missing piece that LeBron James and Anthony Davis really need to help lift the burden a little bit more and get back to an NBA championship? That is the big question, and we will see how that plays out. And not too long. It's really not too long. That's the crazy part, is because of the condensed season and all this. Like, we're going to be in basketball in no time, right? Summer League's already going on. There's a lot of promising Summer League players out there that I've been watching. But I don't know. I'm a shy on the side of positivity. I'd love to know what you all think at home. I know a lot of you have written me because, you know, I'm a LeBron fan. I'm a Lakers fan. So that's what I think. I'm shying on the side of positivity, and I do believe that the Lakers are the clear-cut favorite to come out of the West, especially since Kawhi Leonard will be down and out with ACL surgery. So I like it. I want to see how it works out in the playoffs. That's probably going to be the biggest question for me. Can Russell Westbrook do what James Harden did and sacrifice his game for the betterment of the team? That we will find out. But hey, listen, I told you the NFL was coming back this episode. And I'm bringing you my top 10 wide receivers. Let's go. Okay, so I've been talking about this with my good friends. They're deep in the NFL. They could literally tell you, my brother being included in this conversation, they could literally tell you the shoe size, because I've asked this question, of an offensive lineman on the Baltimore Ravens. That's how random they are when it comes to the NFL, right? They have so much NFL knowledge, it's unreal. I think it's because they're obsessed with Madden. They don't want to agree with me. That's fine. But we were talking about our top 10 wide receivers. And it was interesting to me how subjective top 10 NFL wide receivers are to a lot of people. Because for me, it seems pretty clear and cut that you have to take it based off of last season, right? Because that's what a lot of these NFL networks do. That's what all these ESPN networks do. When they release their top wide receivers to watch for 2021, or, you know, the top 10 wide receivers for 2021, they're basing it off of the fact that these players played and performed last year, therefore they move up in the rankings. Now, I know wide receivers like Michael Thomas, they were hurt throughout the year. And while Michael Thomas is still going to be a top 10 guy, Michael Thomas can't be your number 2 or number 3 anymore, right? For me, at least. I just don't see how, if a guy doesn't play an entire season, I'm just supposed to, like, blindly say, all right, he's going to come back perfect. When I talked about my top 10 NBA players last year, before we went into the season, Kevin Durant dropped for me for the simple fact that he was coming off of an injury that could either ruin his career or he could be fine. Now, we saw that Kevin Durant's fine now, and he had an incredible Olympics. So congratulations, by the way, to U.S. men's Olympics team. I was a doubter, did not think we were going to win the gold this year based on how we were playing leading into it. But Kevin Durant led that team, and we won gold, so congratulations. But Kevin Durant sat out an entire year. He could have been a career-ending injury. I'm not going to put him at the number 1 player in the entire world. Well, A, because LeBron James is still playing, but B, because he's coming off a season. So for me, if you're trying to understand how I give my top 10 rankings, It's based on their performances from last year, based on who I think is moving up, who I think is improving. And guess what? There's going to be some injury guys that are going to take a fall back. Michael Thomas was my number 2 wide receiver last year. Guess what? He's not my number 2 this year. We don't know what's going on. He's having foot surgery again. So while I believe Michael Thomas is a top 10 wide receiver, I can't put him up all the way at number 2. Now, my buddies, on the other hand, and my brother and a bunch of other people that I talk to, it's all different. Some people don't take injuries into account and just say, well, when they're healthy, they're the best wide receiver, which, for me, I just don't like. But there's also some people that say, hey, we're going to look at stats only, which I also don't agree with when it comes to the top 10 wide receivers. When I'm talking about my top 10 wide receivers, I want 10 guys that if I stick on a team that is Super Bowl, like right on the edge of Super Bowl, ready to pursue for a Super Bowl. What am I trying to say here? You all know what I'm trying to say, right? On a team that is 1 or 2 pieces away from making the Super Bowl. Let's put it that way. These are 10 guys that I would want on that team. This is these are the 10 wide receivers that I would want on my team if I'm trying to make my push for a Super Bowl that I think could get me over the edge. And at number 1, even though I hate, did I mention how much I hate the Green Bay Packers? Despise. Hate. It's like that scene in The Grinch with Jim Carrey, right? Where he's like, hate, double hate, loathe entirely. I hate the Green Bay Packers. But Davante Adams is the best wide receiver in football. I mean, he's been ranked number 1 in all but I think one national wide receiver ranking from the big networks, the ESPNs, the Sports Centers. It's hard for me to argue that DeAndre Hopkins is above him, although D-Hop is very close. But I've got to go with Davante Adams here. What Davante Adams does so well, and it's something that I really just started paying attention to recently because I hate watching anything that has to do with Green Bay. But when I'm looking up highlights and doing my research for my podcast, I was watching him run routes. His separation after the route is incredible. Now, what I mean by that, for those of you who don't play football or haven't played football on a higher level, so when I talk about that route separation, I mean from the moment that footwork happens. So if I'm doing a dig, right, that means I'm going straight up 10 yards, I'm digging my heels in the ground, turning around, and a ball is going to hit my hands. His movement from the time that he's catching that ball, his explosion from the time he's catching the ball and finishing his route to go up towards the field is, I think, the fastest in the NFL. Now, Tyreek Hill, I'm not talking about breakaway speed. Tyreek Hill has breakaway speed. Tyreek Hill is the fastest wide receiver in the NFL, without a doubt. But his first 3 steps after the catch, that explosion after the catch, is something that I think sets Davante Adams apart from all of these wide receivers this year. Because he showed it so well last year. Now, of course, he has basically glue for hands. He doesn't drop anything. He's a massive target with a giant catch radius, so all of that helps. And a lot of these top guys are going to be very similar in that nature. DeAndre Hopkins, very similar in that nature. But for me, that explosion after the catch, those first 2 steps are so critical for all wide receivers because that's the difference in, 2 steps, especially for Tyreek Hill, is the difference in Tyreek Hill breaking away for 80 yards or Tyreek Hill being tackled. That explosion after the catch, those first couple of steps is so important and critical to a wide receiver's game. Now, it doesn't hurt that he has Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. Throwing him the football. I mean, let's be honest about that. But Davante Adams is my number 1. At number 2, you've heard me already mention his name a couple times, DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is basically Davante Adams, but a little bit smaller, a little bit skinnier, and I think he's just a little bit slower. Other than that, DeAndre Hopkins is a monster. If you're looking for 2 guys to draft early in your fantasy draft this year, Davante Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, they're going to get you your numbers. They're going to have 6, 7 catches a game for 90 to $130 and a touchdown. They're just automatic. And speaking of someone that's also on the automatic scale, I would go DeAndre Hopkins at number 2. Now, a lot of my NFL experts, as I will call them, and even people that literally work in the NFL that I've talked to, this can vary. A lot of people have either D-Hop first or Davante Adams first. I like Davante just because of his separation after the catch. But D-Hop is also very, very similar. I mean, great route runner, massive, massive, massive catch radius, solid, solid, solid wide receiver, number 2 wide receiver in the NFL. He elevated that Cardinals offense and Kyler Murray's growth more than I think anybody ever thought he would. A lot of people said when he left Houston and he left Deshaun Watson to go to a lesser Kyler Murray that D-Hop was going to take a massive step back. Well, guess what? D-Hop didn't. He still has an incredible catch radius. He's still a top 2 wide receiver in the NFL. He's still just a yards machine. That is what DeAndre Hopkins does. So DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. The second best wide receiver in the NFL. And you can put him first or you can put Devontae Adams first. Either one of these guys I think are going to be very interchangeable. Now, when it comes to 3 and beyond, this is where it can kind of get blurry for a lot of people. Because do I believe that Julio Jones is the 3rd most talented wide receiver in the NFL? Yeah, if Julio Jones is healthy and is coming off a year, if this was Julio Jones 4 years ago, where he's coming off a healthy season and I've seen the explosion, Julio Jones is arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL when he's coming off of one of those years. So at number 3, it was tough for me because I really didn't know where I wanted to go. But I'm going to go with, since I can't go with Travis Kelce because he's a tight end, even though he's basically a wide receiver at the tight end position, let's be honest, I'm going to go Tyreek Hill. See, Tyreek Hill's a fascinating one for me. Doesn't have a massive catch radius, but he's the cheetah, right? The fastest man in the NFL when it comes to the wide receiver position. But here's what I think is very underrated about Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, has great mid-level route running. A lot of people think when there's a speed guy like Tyreek Hill, well, he's really good at running a post. He's really good at running a fade. He's really, really, really good at running a post corner. No, Tyreek Hill is very good at all those things. Don't get me wrong. He is a very good mid-range level receiver. I think Tyreek Hill is more effective when he's coming in on the square ends, the square outs, the hitches, right? When he's going to the short fade posts that are going to the sidelines. Tyreek Hill is super effective, and here's why. Tyreek Hill has very quick feet. Of course, we all know his speed is out of this world. But he has very quick feet when it comes to shifting off of a linebacker. Go back and watch Tyreek Hill. Just watch Tyreek Hill highlights. Now, a lot of them are going to be the deep bombs because when you have Patrick Mahomes, it's hard to not just bomb the ball to Tyreek Hill all the time. But his 1-step or 2-step fades towards a corner to then get onto his route is best in the NFL. He's the best in the NFL when it comes to that mid-level. When he hits that 9 to 15 yard mark and he can put a shifty move on a linebacker just by a slight nod of the foot, nod of the head, that's when you know you've got something cooking. It's like Kyrie Irving. Think about this in this way. This might be more helpful to those of you who aren't massive football nerds. Kyrie Irving doesn't have to give a massive pump fake. Kyrie Irving doesn't have to give a massive jab step, right? When he jab steps, Kyrie Irving's not doing a big, long swoosh like Kevin Durant does, like LeBron James does, like Giannis does, like all these other big names guys do. Because he's so good with his feet, so quick with his feet, that one little smidge to the left, one little jab, one little small pump fake, and that defender is going to shift his whole entire body to the left. And then Kyrie Irving just cooks him, right? He's got him every single time. That's the same thing with Tyreek Hill when it comes to the mid-level route running. His one little shift, his one little pump fake, his one little, when he especially on like Diggs, when he presses forward and does like a fake I'm going for a fly and come back, when he sticks his foot in the dirt and comes back, I mean, it gets the best of the best. It gets the Stephon Gilmores. It gets the Jalen Ramseys of the world pedaling back an extra 2 to 3 feet. He's amazing long range. We all know what he can do long range, but it's easy when you're just running up under a ball because Patrick Mahomes is chucking it out there, right? But his mid-level is, I think, what sets him apart from everybody else. So I'm going to go Tyreek Hill at number 3. At number 4, and this is going to shock a lot of people, Stephon Diggs. Listen, here's the deal. I like Stephon. He was fine in Minnesota. He had the Minnesota Miracle. Like, he was always a very good wide receiver. When he got paired with Josh Allen and that Buffalo Bills team, Stephon Diggs just went out of this world. I mean, Stephon Diggs is a very good catcher of the football, but he is an amazing route runner. Stephon Gilmore isn't going to blow your mind when it comes to speed. Stephon Gilmore isn't going to blow your mind when it comes to his explosion off the line. Stephon Gilmore isn't going to blow your mind with his catch radius. While he's got a good catch radius, he doesn't have DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams catch radiuses or Julio Jones's, right? Not at all. But what Stephon Gilmore showed us last year in Buffalo is that if you're an amazing route runner, aka the Larry Fitzgeralds of the world, you're going to have a long, very successful career in the NFL. What did I always say about A.J. Brown for the Tennessee Titans? Very, very good wide receiver, needs to be a better route runner. The second he was a better route runner last year, he has another very good year, close to a breakout year, moving into people's top 10. You'll find out if he's in my top 10 here in a second. Stephon Diggs is just so good at running routes that it's almost unfair. And Larry Fitzgerald, that's what Larry Fitzgerald has done his entire career. Larry Fitzgerald has never been the fastest, has never been the strongest. He's got very good hands. I'd say Larry Fitzgerald has the best hands, maybe the best hands of all time. This dude just doesn't drop anything. But he's just a good route runner. If you can run a successful route and get your team 5 to 10 yards, 6 yards here, 7 yards here, get them just chunk yards every single time, you're doing your job. And that is exactly what Stephon Diggs has done for the Buffalo Bills, what he will continue to do for the Buffalo Bills. Stephon Diggs, my 4th best wide receiver in the NFL this year. At number 5, I'm going to go Julio Jones. Listen, we know Julio Jones has been battling with some injuries, but when Julio Jones steps foot onto a football field, he is going to conjure 2 to 3 eyes, 2 to 3 bodies at all times. If Julio Jones was completely healthy, even at the age he is now, he would be the best wide receiver in the NFL. Julio Jones is a freak of nature. And the fact that the Titans now have Julio Jones and a Derrick Henry, I mean, that sucks for anybody that's got to play this Titans offense. Like, it's just silly at this point. But Julio Jones is such a freak athlete. And if you think about, if you talk to any guys in the NFL, and I'm not joking, talk to any defensive back, talk to any of the wide receivers, they all will say that Julio Jones is the best wide receiver in the NFL. They say he's just a different animal, a different level. He is Megatron-esque. Somebody that is so different, so unique, so incredible that they really don't know where to put him, what category to put him. See, the best wide receiver? Is he the best football player? Like, when he is healthy and doing Julio things, he is that guy. He is on another level. He is on the Megatron level. He really is. Julio Jones, I'm excited to see what he's going to do with the Tennessee Titans. Him and A.J. Brown, along with Derrick Henry, is going to be a scary combination for teams. But the reason he fell back to 5 for me is I want to see a little bit more consistency. Now, while he is one of the most consistent wide receivers in the NFL over the last couple of seasons, his injuries have started to catch up with him a little bit. Missing 2 or 3 games here, missing 3 games here, right? And that's something that you can't afford to do as a top wide receiver in the NFL. If you look at the best running backs in the NFL, the fact that Christian McCaffrey was put as the number 1 running back in the NFL really pissed me off this year. Why? While he is incredible, and when he's healthy, I think the second best running back in the entire NFL, there's no reason for you to put him up there for the upcoming 2021 season, because what we saw from him last year was pure injury. And that's the same thing, and I know I've already mentioned this, but it just really frustrates me. It really, really, really does piss me off when they just go, all right, this guy's the number 1 guy. It's like, okay, well, he missed 7 games last year. Can we wait and see how he does at the beginning of this year, and then we'll give him his respect back? Do you have to earn your respect still? Do you have to earn the fact that you're the best in whatever category you're in? Or do we just give it to you and you just hold on to it until we decide to take it away? LeBron James was an MVP candidate last year before he got hurt. He was still the best player in the world before he got hurt. Coming into this season, I would dare say Luka Doncic and Kevin Durant, or I don't know about Kevin Durant, but the way Kevin Durant's on a trajectory, Luka Doncic, Giannis, Kevin Durant, like you have other guys that are now going to be fighting for that number 1 spot as the best player in the NBA, and LeBron James has to go back out there and earn the best player in the NBA again. So Julio Jones is going to stay at 5 for me, even though I really want to put him further. I'm excited to see what he's going to do this year. I think Julio Jones has a lot left in the tank. So at number 6, I'm going to go with Allen Robinson. Now, I know that probably most of you are thinking, listen, you're going Titans and Bears right up here. Like, this is some home cooking. But listen to what Allen Robinson was doing with Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles at the helm. Allen Robinson dealt with, and these are just the statistics, and I had to kind of just read these off because it was kind of mind-blowing to me. Allen Robinson dealt with the most inaccurate and off-target passes than any wide receiver in the entire NFL. And he still managed to be the third most valuable player at the wide receiver position that same year last year. He tied for the most contested catches with 21. He had a 1% drop rate. Third amongst receivers with over 100 plus targets, right? Third with over 100 plus targets. Third amongst receivers with over 100 plus. That's insane. For those of you who are not flipping out at home, that is insane. Since joining the Bears in 2018, Robinson ranks 5th in drop rating. 2.2% is his drop rate for his entire career. And in his entire career, from the start till now, he has the most contested catches than any wide receiver. Did you hear? 71 contested catches since he started. When they say contested catches, they don't mean like a defender on you. They mean like, hey, we're chucking this ball up and you have to just go get this ball over 5 defenders. Like, you know when they show highlights of Julio snagging over 3 people? Allen Robinson was doing that every single day that he played football for the Chicago Bears. Why? Oh, I'm sorry. He had 2 of the worst quarterbacks that have ever existed in the history of the game. I like Nick Foles. I'm just very bitter with how the Bears, I don't know, screw talent, you know. And this year, thank God, Justin Fields, I'm sure, will rock Andy Dalton until basically the Bears are 3-7, and then we'll throw Justin Fields in at the end. But the fact that Allen Robinson is that incredible and is so underappreciated and under-talked about because the Bears were so terrible every single year because we can't have a quarterback that throws an accurate pass. I swear, and I'm not even making this up, I saw Mitchell Trubisky lose to a damn high schooler in a throwing competition. Did you hear me? Bears fans? Did you hear me? I saw Mitchell Trubisky lose to a high schooler in a throwing competition, and he was starting for the Chicago Bears. But we have a great track record. Jay Cutler, Rex Grossman, keep them coming, right? Finally, we go out of the mold and get Justin Fields, but to not outdo ourselves, we made sure that Andy Dalton was going to be starting for us just so we could screw up the season just enough to barely miss the playoffs, not get a high draft pick. Listen, I'm not saying I'm like bitter or anything, guys. I'm just saying. But Allen Robinson is going to be my 6th best wide receiver. I love his game. I mean, catch radius, consistency, it's all there, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do with an actual good quarterback. At number 7, here's where Michael Thomas makes his debut. Michael Thomas did have surgery again right before the season, so he'll be missing a few games to start the year. But Michael Thomas is the king of all slants, the king of all route running, it seems like. Like, Michael Thomas is the epitome of, I'm going to run a slant, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. He is the Larry Bird of slants. Larry Bird would go out there and tell people, these are true stories, by the way. He'd go out there and tell people, hey, tonight I'm going to score 35, and I'm going to do it all left-handed. And he would go out there and score 35 with just his left hand. Michael Thomas goes out there and goes, hey, listen, I'm going to run a slant. You're not going to stop me, and I'm going to get a touchdown. Now, will he be affected with Jameis Winston and or Taysom Hill at the quarterback position? Will his injuries hinder him? He was hindered all last year with injuries, dealing with that ankle injury. Will he come back as the Michael Thomas we all know and love and was the number 2 wide receiver for me last year based on how incredible he was? I don't know. But I can tell you this, and this is a fact. He is the most dependable wide receiver when it comes to catching the football, and he wins more 50-50 balls than any wide receiver in the NFL. So if that's not enough to put him in your top 10, then I don't know what you're grading on. For those of you trying to come out here and tell me that like DK Metcalf needs to be at number 6, you can shut the hell up now. And I mean that in all love, guys, because I love you all, and I love my locker room faithful. But also shut the hell up if you're going to try and tell me DK Metcalf is the 6th best wide receiver in the NFL. Now, I know I'm not saying just all of you. There's one specific person who's a very, very good friend of mine, literally my best bud to this day, who said DK was all the way up at 6. Shut up, right? Dependability, route running, Stephon Diggs, Michael Thomas. Those are the two names that come to my mind. And Michael Thomas is going to land here at number 7. At number 8, like I said, this is why I'm telling you it's not all about ranking. It's not all about stats, because I believe that this is a guy that is a game changer, and that's Keenan Allen. Listen, Keenan Allen had a weird role last year. They didn't really know what was going on with Justin Herbert. He had a really good repertoire, which young quarterbacks do, and this is something that not a lot of people give respect for. They're going to have a good repertoire with their tight end. They're going to have a good repertoire with their running backs coming out of the backfield on the short passes. Why? Because that's your first reads, right? You're reading if you get into panic mode, you're scrambling. You're looking for a tight end because they're usually going to be in that shallow route, and you're looking for a running back that you can just kind of dump it off to. Those are your two emergency routes as a young quarterback. So with a young Justin Herbert in there last year, Keenan Allen was still a top 10 wide receiver. I think Keenan Allen really does belong in that top tier category. He's very dependable. Every single year he's a top 10 wide receiver statistically. And even last year, when his production takes a step back because you have a young quarterback trying to get initiated, he's still the second most impact player for the Chargers. So it literally went Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen. I'm a big Keenan Allen fan. I really wish that the Titans would have pursued him in any sort of offseason trade. But, or the Bears. I know that they're never going to do that. But Keenan Allen is going to stay here at my number 8 spot. I'm a big Keenan Allen fan. At number 9, Adam Thielen. Now, I know this is probably some of you are probably like, what the hell? These are just players that I think are the better wide receivers. So it's very objective, like I've said. But Adam Thielen, also very dependable when it comes to hands, but he is a top 3 wide receiver when it comes to one-on-one coverage. That means that Adam Thielen is beating his corners at about a 63% rating. So well over half of the time, Adam Thielen is beating his cornerback. And we saw him finally snap back into form last year. And he took a hit, but last year bounced back into top 5, top 6 in just about every single category. He's ranked in the top 5 this year by many Pro Football, or top 10 this year by many Pro Football Focuses, which is the one that I do a lot of the research with because I like Pro Football Focus, Sports Center, ESPN. A lot of those guys and all those independent analysts have Adam Thielen in either right at the 11 to 10 to the 9 range. For here, he's going to be 9 for me. I like Adam Thielen's route separation. He's incredible. Wins, like I said, well over half of his individual matchups against the defensive backs. And he's ranked in the top 6 over the last 4 seasons. So his consistency has always been there as well. I mean, literally ranked 4 seasons in a row. So Adam Thielen is going to be at my number 9. And finally, at number 10, and this is going to blow some people's minds, I'm going to go A.J. Brown. A lot of people, and I know what you're thinking. I've got 2 Titans players and a Bears player. At this point, you're like, I'm convinced Jacob's just doing this just to be annoying. But a lot of people have at A.J. Brown. Pro Football Focus has him all the way up at 6. A.J. Brown took such a step up forward last year. He finally learned that you can't just beat people by speed and strength, and that's what he did his entire first season. Listen, he was working on raw talent his first season, and he was great. His second season, he finally gets his feet under him. He's finally learning how to run routes. He has crazy built-in strength. Generated over almost 3 yards a catch every single catch, which is average is very, very hard to do. That puts him in number 3 spot for that. So he's performing like a top 3 wide receiver when it comes to yards per reception. He averaged about a 90% rating all last year in his usage rating, his catch rating. So, I mean, this dude last year was just basically Mr. Automatic. He was a phenomenal player in his rookie season. Second year he comes out, starts dominating again. Now, granted, Corey Davis did take a big step up as well. But he edged out Odell Beckham Jr. and Antonio Brown for the highest rating of any wide receiver in its first 2 NFL seasons. That record was destroyed by Odell Beckham Jr., and then Antonio Brown said, hey, hold my beer. I'm going to destroy this record. And A.J. Brown said, no. Both of you hold my beer. I'm going to destroy this record. He ran a minimum, he's already run over 700 routes in the NFL. And he's recorded the highest ranking by Pro Football Focus than any wide receiver. Brown is the guy, and this is why I put Brown right at this edge. He's the guy for the next generation, right? Brown is the guy, when I think of wide receivers that are going to take it to the next level and going to be the guys we talk about, the Julio Joneses, the whoever, A.J. Brown is the very first guy on that list. So that's how it is. That is my top 10. I think A.J. Brown is going to be remarkable this year with Julio Jones, but A.J. Brown killing records and rounds out my top 10. Well, there you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, another episode is in the books. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I know many of you have missed the podcast and you've written me, so I appreciate that. Well, we are back. We're not stopping now. And things are slowly, this week, finally capped off the craziness. So after this week, things are going to be completely 100% normal, backing up and running. There were some things that kind of hit me out of nowhere over the last 2 weeks since the last episode, but don't worry because we are back in full force. So I want to thank you all for joining me. Once again, everybody, I'm Jacob Courtwright. This is The Locker Room.